Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, what coffee you may be drinking. Get your questions in, and then, of course, also let us know if you're going to the Peach Bowl. We want to know who all is planning on attending, as we are a little less than 52 hours away, guys. And I also want to give a big thanks to Duck Camp, as well as the entire week for the college football playoff is brought to you by the good folks at Duck Camp. So a big thank you to them. But yeah, as I said, we're a little under 52 hours away. The team has made it to Atlanta. Curious to get y'all's thoughts as we get closer and closer.
Team arrived yesterday, Blake. Got in yesterday afternoon. A friend of mine actually was one of the pilots. All right. A friend, I shouldn't say a friend of mine, a friend of the program was one of the pilots. I don't think that's him, but he was one of the pilots that took the team yesterday. You look at the guys getting off there. There's also later pics of them getting into the hotel. They're there, and guess what? They're already meeting in front of the media right now, Jerry and Blake. There are about 40 different Texas players, as well as 7 different coaches meeting with the media for little breakout sessions over the next 2-hour time frame. Our CJ Vogel is there, and we'll be bringing some of that to you guys as well. So it should be a good week. We're kicking it off strong. We got a little bit more than 48 hours to go before the Longhorns tee it up against Arizona State.
Yes, and of course, Arizona State arrived yesterday as well, and we hope that Sam Levitt didn't take any geese feathers to the mouth on that flight, because he can't keep his trap shut all of a sudden. But they will have their media session today as well, which, he's had some fun to it. I like it. I bring it on. Y'all know I love this stuff, so I like it. I mean, look, if I'm Arizona State, I know what game they're trying to play with Texas right now. They're trying to get the cheap 15-yarder. They're trying to put some pressure on Texas. They're trying to get Texas to play out of their zone. It's not going to work. But I do like it, because if in any motivation is good motivation. All the greats have used motivation, and I would have advised my players to remain quiet, but that's not what happened with Arizona State. And I respect Kenny Dillingham. I think he's done a great job, and that entire staff. But I'm not sure that was the tactic I would have used.
And I'm actually going to play, for those that may have missed it, I'm going to bring that video up here and play y'all exactly what Jerry's talking about.
Yeah, I've watched him for a fair amount of time now. I'm just excited for the opportunity. People keep counting me out since day one, and I'm gonna go prove I'm the better quarterback. And that's how I feel since day one. So I'm gonna go put everybody on the map.
Look, I mean, I like his confidence. I think the guy's a really good player. And I'm not sure I would have, gone that direction with what I was saying necessarily. But I respect the guy's competitiveness at the same time. But I love it. I think we need it. I think it's great. I would love for Steve Spurrier to speak on behalf of Arizona State football about 24 hours before the game in some form or fashion too. So I'm all for it. I love it. But I'm not sure I would have gone down that, I'm going to prove I'm better than Quinn Ewers path with Quinn's offensive line versus his offensive line in this game. That one may come back.
Nothing like inviting turmoil, and inviting another team to have an edge on you. We'll see. Is he baiting Quinn a little bit to try to overperform and overshoot? I don't know. We'll see. Trace Little with a quick super chat here. Currently beating the shiz out of ASU on NCAA 25. There you go, Trace. Keep it up. Everybody doing that. Hey, I do want to y'all asked that question, Jerry, about whether or not people are going to attend. You and Blake did. I want to know what people's favorite Christmas present was, too. That's one of those that you never know what it could be. Is it NCAA 25? Is it something else? But anyways, we'll find out and have time to talk about that this morning. Blake, what do you have for us next, buddy?
Yeah, so Bobby, you'll actually be happy to learn that the line has gone down a little bit. You know, we saw it go up last week. It started at 13.5. We saw it get as high as 14. Some books even had it at 14.5. But now, as of this morning at 8:18 a.m., it is 12.5.
Well, it's because the wind's picking up outside the stadium, so that people are that don't realize the game is indoors are factoring in the kicking game, surely. But yeah, look, I mean, it's gonna sit right there. It's gonna sit between 12.5 and 13, 13.5 by the time this thing kicks off. I'd be surprised if it moved any lower. But I whatever. Y'all know where I come out on this. It's the 51.5 total, Bobby. So what are they essentially saying? This game's going to be 31, 32-19, 32-20. I mean,
yeah,
that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's fair. 33-30. 33-20, excuse me. Hey, I had a question for you. Just thinking about this as we look at the line and whatnot. Why would you put money on ASU right now? Okay, tell me why. And I tried to come up with this last night. What would justify me saying ASU had a chance? Right? It would be Scatabo and the quarterback really catching fire at the right time. Kenny Dillingham's offense winning a shootout of sorts, in my opinion. 3 high look from Arizona State may give Texas's offense some issues. Okay. But then the real piece of it is, and this is where I think it can make a difference, and we've seen it make a difference with Steve Sarkisian, who's an offensive coach. And that's weeks off the game plan. Has Kenny Dillingham been cooking up something special from a game plan perspective over the last month almost? Right? Is he have something out there that Texas hasn't seen before, or a tweak to it that's going to get them going? Because he could have been working on both. There's enough time in the day. He could have been working on both Texas and Clemson for a month, essentially, Jerry. Why would ASU win this game? Running back and quarterback put on a cape and look like Superman. 3 high safety look gives Texas some problems. And then the game plan of Kenny Dillingham. And then you can talk about the other aspects like turnovers, drop things, missed field goals, things like that could contribute to Texas wetting the bed. But I don't know.
Well, as far as why people would bet on Arizona State to cover, I think it's out there that
not just cover, but how did they get in the game?
Well, yeah. Well, I meant from a betting standpoint, because that was look. People, Texas just doesn't put teams away. They don't really finish. Blah, blah. I mean, they won the Clemson game by 14. They beat Michigan by 19 on the road. I mean, they beat they beat Oklahoma by 30 more than Navy did, which is a different discussion. Texas is outside of Georgia. I mean, is it been as pretty as the fan base wants it? No. As we want it? No. But they've won games by double digits outside of Vanderbilt. I mean, it's almost like, yeah, well, Texas just not putting opponents away, so this will just be more of the same. And maybe Quinn throws a pick 6, or Texas puts the ball in the rug, and so Arizona State will cover. Okay, we'll see. People aren't taking into account the talent disadvantage in some of these games, in my estimation. And the reality is, if Texas goes out and plays a A- game, they're going to cover this number. So people are sitting there betting that Texas isn't going to play well, is what's happening.
Here's my take on it. So I don't care if Texas. I'm not a gambler by nature. I don't bet and all that other stuff. I don't care. So I don't care if Texas wins by 1 or 27. I just want Texas to play in the college football semifinals, in a week and a half or 2 weeks now. So my take on this is a little bit different. I'm trying to see past the victory for ASU, and outside, because I do think that the running back and quarterback can even put on a cape. I actually believe both of them probably can at some level, Jerry. but they're not going to be able to do enough unless there's a game plan there from Dillingham. If he's got something cooked up that he's identified with Texas, then let's talk. But if he doesn't, I think that you're right. I think Texas is going to. I'm not worried about covering. I'm just worried about winning. So that's something to look for. And Dillingham, probably the biggest coaching game of his career, would you say, at this point, by far, head coaching game. So we'll see what he has.
I wanted to bring this up, guys. And we asked at the beginning, who's all going? A lot of people saying that they're actually going to sit this one out in hopes of going to the Cotton Bowl. But Dean here with a pretty good question. How will 4 playoff games affect going to these games to our fans? Our fans travel well.
Oh, I think this is a big issue, not just for Texas, but it's not the Arizona State fan base who's, never been here before. And that's a different level of excitement, right? Boise in the Fiesta Bowl, because they're like, hey, we've never lost in this bowl. They are Friday night. But, the games, Bobby, is on a Wednesday. It's New Year's, but it's a Wednesday. These aren't really weekend games right now, too. And you don't know, you really can't plan ahead. So you're getting gouged on every single thing. It's definitely going to hurt attendance for the teams that play 4 games in this playoff as far as their own fan base. I don't think there's any way around it. You think if Tennessee Tennessee fans could drive to Ohio State. You think if they had won that game and they're playing in the Rose Bowl, they'd have 40,000 people there? Probably not. So it's definitely going to have an effect. And I do think we'll see some lower ticket sales in some games because of it.
We got a lot more to talk about this morning. Of course, we got to get to all your questions and super chats. But first, Bobby, let everyone know about John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd like to thank our sponsor, John Donovan, president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. He also is going to be sponsoring us all of next year as well. We just talked to John about that last week. Happy that he's aboard. John's a proud Texas Exes life member whose wife and 6 siblings are also UT grads. This UT family passion is what led John to brand his firm Longhorn Wealth Management Group and dedicate it to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the nation for more than 30 years. John will be helping host the Collin County Texas Exes Game Watch Party at the Brass Tap in Plano on New Year's Day for any Longhorn fans looking for a great place to gather in the spirit of celebrating New Year's and an expected Longhorn victory. Knock on wood there, John. John is offering all OTF members a free 90-minute consultation to help you jumpstart 2020-25 by learning how a certified financial planner can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and secure your legacy. Call John and his team at Longhorn Wealth, 972-707-4900, or go online, www.longhornwealth.net, to schedule your free consultation. John wants to wish all OTF fans a happy new year and hook them to the Texas Longhorns.
Thank you, Bobby. And yesterday, guys, news came out that Isaiah Bond looks like he'll be playing in the game. A lot of people asking about him. What's the latest there? And on Cam Williams?
Yeah, so look, we've been reporting it. People have been reporting that Isaiah Bond was giving it a go in practice, which is a positive sign. And now he will try to give it a go in the game. What is that going to look like? We'll have to wait and see, right? But it's great news for Texas moving forward if he's able to get back on the field, if he has the same speed and explosivity. That's the whole key with Isaiah Bond. If he's playing and he's not as effective from a speed standpoint, then I'm not sure how much of a big difference maker he could be. That's the key. And Cam Williams, we've been saying Trevor Gooseby has taken the first team reps at right tackle in practice. So I think Cam Williams, and this is something I want to say this is not something just from getting the player falling on him against Clemson. This is something that had been lingering for a while this year, and that exasperated it. So we'll look for that after the season. I would say he's trying to work through this season and get through it. But I think some time off is needed for him headed into the semifinal game, assuming Texas handles their business.
Yeah, I would say a couple of things about Isaiah Bond. And Pete Thamel's the one that's reporting that he's expected to play. He's the ESPN reporter. There's nuance to that, as I wrote on Texas Football this morning in that article. Jerry, how good is good? And we've talked about this all week. We've expected him to try to give it a go. We knew that. The question is it 10 plays or is it 50? Which would be his normal output in a season if he was healthy. Yeah. How many plays? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 50? I don't think it's 50. I'll put that out there. So I think it's going to be more between 10 and 25, which means they're also going to have to rely a lot on Ryan Wingo, who's proven capable, by the way, in my opinion. So that's part one. Your other issue with Cam Williams is dead on. In my opinion, just dead on. We'll see Trevor Gooseby most likely. By the way, Texas putting out a list of people talking to the media today. Jerry, did you notice Trevor Gooseby was on that list?
Yeah,
as well. So a few young Longhorns getting an opportunity to speak to the media for the very first time today. And Trevor Gooseby, one of those.
Well, we've talked in depth about Texas and Arizona State, but let's talk about some other games that happened over the last few days. We'll start with Casey saying, can we all agree that it's hilarious? The ACC is 1-9 in bowl games, but I was also going to say, I bet we all agree that A&M and OU was a little embarrassing as well.
I can't imagine, like I said this last night, but I can't imagine Brent Venables sitting there thinking, man, I got to go for 2 to try to knock out this Navy team right now. Like, that's a bad place to be, man. That's a really bad place to be. Obviously, they have a DC change now. There's some chatter. He's going to go after the Clemson DC. And would Dabo even fight that one? And would the Clemson DC really want to walk into that situation unless Dabo didn't fight to keep him? Something to watch there. But, man, that was I just can't imagine Brent Venables sitting there saying, I got to go for 2. I got to try to get this Navy team now. We can't handle much more against them. That is a bad, bad place for Oklahoma football to be, Bobby. And then we'll get to A&M in a second.
Yeah, OU's issue, and they also lost their defense coordinator over the weekend to West Virginia, by the way. I will say this: if there is a position I don't worry about for OU, it would be defense coordinator. Right? Because Brent Venables is going to hire somebody that runs his scheme, essentially. But replacing both coordinators going into year 4, as David Rawls mentions, probably not what OU administration had in mind when they hired him, especially not when Steve Sarkisian just went into year 4 with the very same coordinators he started with and is making his second consecutive playoff appearance. OU in its third year, 6-7 with Brent Venables. 2 out of 3 losing years. By comparison, last year, Texas was 12-2 and playing in the national semifinals. I think the folks in Norman understand that something's rotten in Denmark or Norman.
Well, and their schedule's getting tougher next year than this year, in my opinion, because Auburn's improving more than Oklahoma is. LSU, I think they've done a really good job in the portal. I think they're getting better in some key spots. Michigan's on the schedule next year for Oklahoma. I mean, Michigan in year 2 with a
capable quarterback.
Yeah, with NIL behind it now in a bigger, better way. I mean, that schedule's tougher. It's going to be interesting. I mean, is he going to do enough is 8-4 even enough next year? I think he's going to have a tough time getting 8-4, but would 8-4 be enough?
I think it would probably be enough depending on how the team looked and whether or not their quarterback was coming back the next year. Mateer, or is he going to try to go pro? 8-4 with positive momentum and your quarterback coming back. I think that's a possibility. Meanwhile, over in College Station, they lost late Friday night And I had to ask the question, if it happens at 1 a.m. and nobody is there to hear it, does it really happen? And the answer is yes, it really does. A&M finishes 8-5. Jerry Hamilton with the tweet of the weekend, by the way. This is Mike Elko in Vegas, ripping blackjack and a Corona, okay? And somebody says, that's my coach. And then Jerry Hamilton comes back with the tweet of the week. Can't see the cards, but guessing it's an 8-5. Jerry, that was absolutely classic.
Phenomenal.
He is. A&M is sitting on 13, staring at a 20 right now.
I made some people mad with that one. I didn't expect. I just did that for the Texas fan base. I didn't expect for like LSU and people like that to start piling on. That was unexpected.
You welcome it though, don't you, Jerry?
Well, you have to. If you're not, you're in the wrong business.
The Aggies did pick up a really good receiver yesterday, though. Let's give credit where credit is due. Casey Concepcion, one of the top handful of players in the portal out of NC State, ACC Freshman of the Year 2 years ago, is now at A&M, has signed with them. Aggies continue to try to do work in the portal to try to backfill what they have. I just don't think they have enough to materially change what they do next year. I really don't. Maybe they're better on offensive line at receiver, Jerry, but how much?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not real. They've got so much. You can look at their defense and say, we have so far to go. How in the hell are we going to get there? That's what if I'm an Aggie fan right now, that's what I'm saying to myself. I've got a defensive coach. We look like dog, you know what, for the last half of the season. And my best players are gone. Scourton, Stewart, Turner.
Yeah.
I'm going to roll back out there with these guys. So if I'm an Aggie fan, that is my eternal question. What in the hell am I going to do on defense? It's not offense. It's defense. You got a defensive head coach.
And we got to say the same thing. Their schedule, although it was a great schedule, is more difficult next year, in my estimation, because of the same reasons as Oklahoma. Auburn is getting better. And under Hugh Freeze, and I don't know about Jackson Arnold. By the way, for the chat that missed this last night, it just came to my mind. If Auburn rolls into Norman and Jackson Arnold beats Brent Venables, I'm guessing he'll be fired within a week. That may be the nail in the coffin game. But for A&M, LSU, I think, is doing better in the portal addressing their needs. And I don't think A&M's doing a bad job. I think LSU's actually been really impressive, almost unexpected to me what they've done. I think LSU and Auburn are going to be better next year. I mean, Nussmeier's back for LSU. They've addressed some needs of defensively in the portal. I think at LSU pretty well in the secondary and defensive end spot, giving themselves a chance to improve there in year two under Baker. So I look at LSU and Auburn and say Auburn's recruiting class, those D linemen are really, really good. And I know they're going to be young, but they won't be young by the time A&M plays Auburn in College Station. And I do think Auburn may have downgraded at quarterback, and that could be an issue. They're losing Jerquez Hunter, but they still have some really good athletes on that team. They recruited a great class. They're doing good things in the portal. That's going to be interesting because I think the schedules are getting tougher for both A&M and Oklahoma next year right now.
Well, one other thing that happened over the weekend, fellas, is your interview, Bobby, with former Texas head coach Mack Brown. Longhorn Frenzy here says, great interview with Coach Mack Brown. Would love to see him as a fundraiser for Texas One Fund. Mack can sell ice cubes to Eskimos.
Yeah, I talked to Mac a little bit about that, and I actually talked to him a little off air too about his plans. I really believe that his plans are to move to Austin. He and Sally are going to move to Austin, back, live somewhere over there on Lake Austin, have a big old house, invite the grandkids over and the kids over and have all kinds of fun. But I think that his macro plans, at least at this point, is to have some tangential relationship with the university. Maybe it's, doing some fundraising. Maybe it's being involved with the athletics in some tangent. Maybe it's fundraising. Who knows? Okay. I think he'll have a tangential relationship with the university, and a strong one. But I think he wants to get in and try the TV route for a year at least, because he is always that's something that he very well could do and has done before. And I think that's something he wants to look into out of the gate. He told me that those decisions for TV are not made until after the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl happens, and then the TV programming guys get in a room and say, okay, what's our group going to look like for next year? I think Matt could very well be a part of that. So we'll see how that goes.
And we have another super chat. This one from Bastrop Bear. Thank you for your super chat. Do any players at Arizona State break Texas too deep, including Scattaboo?
Oh yeah, Scattaboo for sure does. Jordan Tyson would have if he was healthy. Too deep.
The wide receiver, no doubt.
Yeah, really good player, but he's hurt. I mean,
Xavier Alford, maybe.
Xavier Alford's a possibility. CJ Fight would play as an undersized D lineman. I'm not sure it'd be too deep, but he'd play. He's a good player.
That is a guy that Texas fans need to know about. Talk a little bit about CJ Fight, Jerry, and his path to Arizona State out of East Texas.
Yeah, so he's that undersized guy that wasn't going to be recruited heavily by Texas, Oklahoma, or A&M or LSU because he was probably 5'11" and a half coming out of high school, 6 foot. He's listed at 6'1". I'm sure he's 6 foot even. But he came out of Tatum, Texas, who's had some tremendous football players in that deep East Texas, far East Texas school over the years. Came down to Kansas State and Arizona State. He may have been committed to Kansas State for a while, flipped Arizona State, but really good athlete, tremendous feet. I mean, a quality player, especially in the Big 12. Size-wise, if he's 6 foot, 280, 285, a little bit tougher matchup for him coming up probably, or if he played in the SEC on a week-to-week basis, but really good player. One of the many guys that comes out I love East Texas. Those kids are tough. They're physical football players. He just didn't have the size to be a high-level recruit, but his play was that of a high-level recruit, and his tape and his athleticism all coming out of high school. That was a good evaluation by ASU, KSU.
Hey, that's how you do it. If you're those schools, you take an inch or 2 inches or 3 inches and go for the better player. That's how you do it. You take the running back out of Sacramento State that's putting up crazy numbers and make do that. You pick the player over the prospect if you're Arizona State. And I've said that. That's what Kansas State did all those years with Bill Snyder. They picked guys that were players over prospects.
Yes, no doubt. And he falls in line. He would have been one of those guys for Bill Snyder. He would have fit in perfectly. Yeah.
Yes. Player over prospect. But those guys aren't beauty contest people.
Right.
They're winning people.
That's kind of the point of that question, that super chat, though. And that's what Arizona State, the biggest thing they have to overcome in this game is it's a huge talent disadvantage. And that doesn't mean somebody can't pull an upset or win a game. We've all been around sports our whole life, right? We've watched it. Some of us have watched it in person. Some of us have been part of it, playing in a game where you're like, man, we're so much more talented. How the hell did we lose this game? But, it's tougher when a team's bigger, stronger, and faster. And that's what Boise State's up against. That's what Arizona State's up against in these games against Texas and Penn State. And it doesn't mean somebody can't pull them. And I think it would be a huge upset if either team won. Huge upset. It's just what I believe. I think there's such a talent disadvantage for these teams. I mean, like there was a 3-round NFL mock draft I looked at the other day. By the way, Texas had 9 players on it. So people that say
in a 3-round draft?
In a 3-round draft.
Wow. Texas had 9?
They had 9. So a couple of things with that. When you look at the draft, for one, for the people saying, well, Texas didn't play a great schedule. there may be some truth in that in the SEC. Like Georgia played a tougher SEC schedule than Texas did. Oklahoma did. I don't see how you can argue that. But what Texas has played against, they played against a ton of talented individual players. Anything they see in this playoff, they've seen it before. I mean, there were 17 players in this 3-round draft that Texas has gone up against this year. 17 at all different positions, whether it's Will Johnson at corner, whether it's a number of defensive linemen, whether it's Jalen Walker at linebacker. And you take last year, too, for Texas, and that number's like 26 guys in this 3-round draft because there's Jahad Campbell at Alabama, Tyler Brooker at Alabama. Just go down the list. Texas, I think sometimes people look at the schedule and say and don't think about it fully. Texas has played against some hellaciously talented players this season. And guys that aren't even draft eligible. Jaden Baugh is a future top 2-3 round draft pick at running back. They have played against tremendous players this season. So people Texas schedule. Okay. Well, look at the NFL mock drafts. Look at all the talent they've played against this year. And Arizona State, by the way, in that 3-round mock draft, since they didn't play Colorado this year, they played 0. So they're about to take the field against a Texas team that has way more talent than anything they've seen this year. That's what Arizona State's up against. I mean, and I'm not saying it's going to be like North Crowley and Austin Westlake last Saturday, but sometimes you just go up against somebody, you're just like, and after the game, you're just like, they're really, really talented.
I want to ask you this, Jerry, because is Jaden Baugh the best comp that Texas has played for Scatabo? Because he runs through tackles.
Yeah.
Big, thick kid, patience, and then has some acceleration. Now, I know Scatabo's got a couple of years on Baugh, but they have somewhat similar running styles, I think. You agree? They're big backs that are hard to corral. I think Baugh had some success against Texas.
I think size-wise, yeah. I think Baugh may be a little quicker guy, right? Okay. But size-wise, yeah. Florida's offensive line's probably better in the run game. They got a better, I would think.
Well, they're more massive for sure.
They're bigger guys. They're bigger. And that's going to be, Rod Babers, we were talking about this last night. This is one of the fascinating things for the chat, I think, in this game, is what is the Texas defensive line? How are they going to play against Arizona State? Because if it's me, I'm not going to be surprised if they don't use their interior guys just to hold gaps. And because Arizona State wants you to get up the field. There's 2 plays in the Big 12 championship game. All you have to do is go watch the ESPN highlights. Just look it up on YouTube. Arizona State, Iowa State. They literally let Dominic Orge run up the field, and Scatabo ran it behind his butt. So Arizona State wants Alfred Collins to play up the field against them in the run game. I would not be surprised if Texas didn't say, not happening. We're just going to hold our gaps here because our bigger guys are going to be able to hold our gaps against your offensive line. And then we're going to make Scatabo start turning east and west. My opinion, I think that's what we're going to see Texas do. I don't think Texas is going to fall into the trap of getting upfield and Arizona State almost letting them get upfield and then running it right off their butt. I don't think Texas is going to walk into that trap in the run game. The interesting thing there, though, is does that slow down your pass rush?
Yeah.
That's the double-edged sword there. But I think you're going to see Texas hold gaps and say, all right, now run it up inside with your power run game. We don't think you can do it.
Got it. Well,
that's my thought. I could be wrong.
I hope so. I would also say this about something that Rod said last night that I hadn't thought about. You know, there are 2 great running backs, truly great running backs in the final 8.
Yep.
Right now. Scatabo and also Ashton Genty. Okay. Up in the Boise. We're going to get a precursor of that on tomorrow night, actually, because Penn State and Boise State go at it in the Fiesta. Okay. let's see how Penn State handles a heavy run dose, and if they're good enough to manage that against a team in Boise that has scored against everybody. But it may be a good proxy to see if Texas and Penn State can handle great running backs. Bottom line.
Yep. And I would say Boise is really up against it, even though I think Jainty's a tremendous, tremendous player. I think he should have won the Heisman personally. But their quarterback play isn't what Sam Levitt is.
Okay.
I think that is going to be the issue for Boise in that. And I think Penn State has a huge advantage because I don't think Boise's receivers have as much quickness as Arizona State, and the quarterback is not the athlete or the player that Sam Levitt is. I think Penn State may put a whomping on Boise a little bit in this game. I think that's going to be interesting. And Boise is a good pass rush team. See what they do outside of it. But I think it's a great point that Rod made. I mean, it's too tremendous. Those guys are going to have monster days. Like Jainty had 192 against Oregon, and that game they lost 37-34 in Eugene, second game of the year. He's going to need to have something like that, in my opinion. And Oregon, Penn State, I don't know. I just don't know if they're going to do that against Penn State's rush defense. I bet it's a good question. Arizona beat ASU 59-23 last year. Does Nansen give Texas a big advantage in this game? It's a good question, Vader. It's a good point. Well, he's got to feel good about it because he's got better personnel at Texas than he had at Arizona. But Arizona State was a bad football. This is where I give Kenny Dillon.
They didn't have a quarterback last year.
Yeah, they had a quarterback situation last year instead of a quarterback. And Scadabo was 15 pounds heavier. He's a better player this year. And they did a great job. That Dillingham, it'll be interesting to see how long he stays at Arizona State. It's where he went to school. It's where he's from. He's close to getting some different opportunities. Like, if Dan Lanning moves on, he'll have to turn down Oregon because that's where he was before. But they did a tremendous job. It's hard to turn from 3-9 to 12-team playoff. I think he needs to get more credit than he gets for that outside maybe the state of Arizona. They're picked dead, butt naked last in the Big 12. And they're in the playoff with a bye. I mean, he did a hell of a job there. They did a good job in the portal. They did a good job getting a right quarterback. They made good decisions in the portal. They did not try. If you look at that, they didn't just try to collect talent. They actually tried to build the best team they could. And I think that was smart.
I would add this. If he wants true national acclaim, then he needs to beat Texas. And it will come. It will be
a job.
Yes. That's what I see. He's got to come out with a game plan, dude. I'm just one that kind of shocks and awes. I'm not saying 3 reverse passes, but one that has a Texas defense that is among the nation's best, scrambling a little bit. That's the recipe for them to win.
Bobby, we're both wearing our duck camp today, so I figure there's no better time than now for you to let everyone know about duck camp.
Yeah, absolutely. Duck Camp's an Austin-based company that is sponsoring our week-long college football playoff week. They did it for the Clemson game as well. We appreciate them. Duck Camp gear is made for the people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, and football to watch. They like doing all of that stuff. So they built a company centered on it, based in Austin, and dedicated to giving people best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel. Duck Camp has been tested in the backcountry of Alaska, the dove fields of Texas, and more. It's ready to keep you warm, comfortable on nice, 40, 50-degree game days. Even if you're indoors, it'll stand up to the toughest of conditions, but also happily sit down beside a fire and drink a few cold ones with you if that's more your speed. Their iconic game series hats feel as timeless as the hats found in your grandpa's garage. Be sure to check out the new Mallard and Pointer hat in the clay colorways, pretty much our cherished burnt orange color. Here's the great seasons, y'all. Yes, hunting and football. Shop hunting and fishing gear at duckcamp.com. Hook them from the folks at Duck Camp.
Hey, Bobby Petronic, this guy's a great fisherman. Try putting a touch of mayo on your fishing lures. 100%. 12-pound bass guaranteed.
Jeez. Well, real quick, Jerry, I wanted to give you this next super chat because obviously you have some knowledge about Arizona State here.
Maybe there's a reason I'm picking big. No, look, so the funny thing about that photo was I was out at in Phoenix last spring. My son and I went to a hockey game, some spring training baseball, and we were kind of walking up and down Camelback Mountain, and Arizona State was having I guess kind of a future students kind of tour type of thing. And the mascot was out there, and I didn't know that the picture would have meaning now, but it does. But the guy was pretty tall. I'll give him credit. He must have been like 6'1".
Forks up, Jerry. Forks up.
Forks up. Forks up. Yeah. So we're am I wearing lifts? No. But yeah, so I was just on Camelback Mountain. It was pretty fun. It was pretty funny that picture now has meaning other than joking around. Hey, by the way, I will say this too. If anybody lived in like that Phoenix Tempe area and just went to Camelback Mountain and just walked it twice a day, you'd probably have abs in 3 months.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 calorie burn twice. I mean, like, and you're like, your metabolism's on fire. So
the problem is from April until November, it's like a 5,000 calorie burn because it's 120 degrees.
Yeah.
You know, Arizona's great, you know, in January, February, start getting out there in July. You don't want to go outside. You got to be covered. Camelback Mountain would have to have a sheet thrown over it for me to get out there.
All right. Our next super chat here comes from Derek Smith. And he says, good morning, guys, from sunny San Diego. If Arizona State goes to 3-high look, then it's barbecue chicken in the run game because they're already light in the pants.
That's the issue, Bobby.
I know. And I'll say this. You know, Iowa State, if you think about one of the reasons why Arizona State looked so good against Iowa State is because they were able to run against 3-high because they had a running back that could run through tackles. I don't know about this 3-high look. Let's see what it does because it has flummoxed Texas before. We all agree with that. And even if it hasn't completely cost them the game, and it hasn't cost Texas the game as many times as maybe we would thought, it has absolutely slowed down the offense. So does that mean Texas scores 27 instead of 35? That's a fair question, right? Is that enough to give ASU a chance? That's why I said QB and running back have to wear a cape for ASU. 3-high defense has to be effective. And Kenny Dillingham has to come with a game plan that's a little special.
Outside of their screen game, which is, I think, ball control, I think that plus Scatabo, they do a great job in ball control. I think the other interesting thing is, look, we all in the chat, all of us talking about this, we all know this. Arizona's best chance, I don't think, is a shootout because then it just comes down to athleticism and talent. I think it's keeping the possessions as low as possible in this game. I think it's a low possession game. This is not Oregon talent level that Arizona State has. Making Texas drive a field. So maybe 3-high, maybe look, we know they're going to rush for 175, 200 yards on us, even if we play well. But we're going to play zone, and we're going to make them go 75 and 80 over 9 plays to score against us. And then hope we can do the same on the other side. And if they do that, they could really lower the possessions of this game. But what Arizona State's a goal, because look, I don't care what the line is. I don't care what the coaches are saying, all this talk, all this BS. In the Arizona State coach's office, they know they're up against it from a talent perspective. These guys aren't dumb. They watch the tape. Their whole deal is, how can we get this to the fourth quarter put pressure on Texas, let our guy put on his cape, as you said, Bobby, and go win us a football game. Go upset college football. What's the best game plan for them to get this to the fourth quarter in a one-score game? I don't think that's a track meet with Texas. I think it's making Texas drive the field, and I think they're hoping they have to turn around and be able to drive the field as well. They need 5 and 6 minute possessions from both teams in this game. If they can, then my score prediction will look horrible. I just don't know if they can pull it off.
Texas gets a couple early 3-and-outs against Arizona State. Watch out. To Jerry's point, that's not what Arizona State wants. And that, I mean, Kitty Dillingham, he is an offensive coach. Like I said, I think that his quarterback and running back are going to be good players. I think he's going to have a decent defensive game plan. If he brings it on offense, we'll see what happens.
And the biggest thing for Arizona State in this game, and either side of the ball, anything, game within the game, anything, can they generate any pass rush against Quinn? If they can't, I think they're really up against it. They're one of the lowest sack rate teams, pressure rate teams, successful pressure rate teams in college football outside the top 100. If they can't get to Quinn, if they can't really affect Sark's passing game, I think they're really up against it. They have to find a way to get pressure. So they may have to sell out a little more than I think they do. Unless they're willing to give up 6-minute drives, Bobby.
Let's flip this and talk a little bit about Sark on offense, because that's what you're getting at. We spent all the time worried about Arizona State's offense and their quarterback. Now you're talking about the Arizona State defense against Texas. How would you attack Arizona State's defense? Do you run them into oblivion, basically? Or do you mix in, are you trying to be even early and you run and pass? Because here's what I think Texas has won big games by running the football this year. They've run the football effectively in big games that they've won. It's not been so much about the passing. I think they try to force the run early. I think Sark tries to get the run game going and then allows the passing game to be part of it. Even if they can't get any pressure, Jerry. So even if Arizona State can't get pressure, I think Sark strategically, if you're playing chess, for example, you get out and you run the ball and then let Quinn and the receivers have a little bit more room, etc. I don't think you come out trying to prove you can throw against that team. That's just my opinion, because I think you have to take their will a little bit. It's just where I'm at.
You want to win. You want to let Arizona State know that physically it's going to be a long day for you.
Yes.
And you can't just do that on defense. You have to do that with your offensive line as well. It'll be interesting. I think Sark has his script, and off of that script, the looks he gets is going to determine what he does early. I mean, look, we've all watched Sark long enough to know if he sees something he wants to attack in the passing game, he's going to do it. The question here is, does he attack Arizona State with the scripted game plan the same way he did in Michigan? Does he want to get their guys running sideline to sideline early in this game? That's going to be the question, because I think Texas will have success on the perimeter in this game. I think they have the athletics. I could see Jaden Blue like making plays on the perimeter in this game. Maybe that's why Isaiah Bond makes his plays. It's going to be interesting, Bobby. The question is, does he throw it horizontally on the perimeter to make them run initially and then come back and say, all right, guys, now that you've played 15 plays, here comes the power? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Can Bobby score an interview with Brett Yormark? I assume he'll be on site. That's from Kevin Randolph. I think that interview would last about a minute, just so you know, because it might be a little antagonistic. There are certain people I probably can't hold my tongue for. I've been doing this for 30 years. I can hold my tongue for just about anybody, there are certain people in life that I maybe wouldn't be able to. Brett Yormark may be one of those for me, the former Big 12 commissioner. I try like hell to treat him with respect, but I'd have to ask him about Lubbock or something. It would happen in the first 30 seconds, unless he just filibustered me, and just talked until I couldn't get a question in.
All right, some more questions and super chats to get to, fellas. And we're going to do this one here from Corey B. He says, good morning, Bobby and Jerry. Texas defense has been pretty consistent in holding opponents under 24 points per game, minus the Georgia game. I feel good that the defense will overwhelm Arizona State and shove them forks up there. You know what?
So I think what's interesting about games now for Texas is, look, we can look back on the season. We were talking about this during the season. They really didn't play elite level quarterbacks. In the playoffs, that changes. And I'm not saying elite, but Sam Leavitt, Cade Klubnik, tremendous player. Sam Leavitt is going to be a tremendous player. He's a redshirt freshman once he, as Rod says, gets more armor on like Cade Klubnik had to do. That's one thing Arizona State better be careful with Leavitt on Wednesday, because he was hurt. He's been beat up a little bit this year, missed the Cincinnati game, and they don't want to go to QB2. You're playing better quarterbacks now. So I think that adds 7 to 10 points in a game, in every game. So if you're thinking, well, Arizona State can't score 20. I mean, this 10 days ago, we're like, people are Clemson can't score 20. Well, they should have 30. And that's because the quarterback was a good player. And Leavitt's a good player. So me personally, I say add 7 to 10 points to what you're thinking it should be when you start playing quarterbacks that have a chance to play at the next level. That's just my opinion. That gives them a chance, right, Bobby? I mean, if Arizona State can pass pro for Leavitt, that's going to be the whole deal.
Look, they've got a good quarterback. Texas is going to have to deal with that. Texas has played decent quarterbacks this year. Klubnik was clearly the best, in my opinion, because he made plays outside the pocket, downfield, had good receivers. I think Clemson's receivers are better than Arizona State's receivers.
I agree, 100%.
So doesn't mean ASU can't figure it out. Like I said, Jerry, I'll come back to it and say it probably 10 more times. I just think that Texas has a really good defense. What kind of points can Kenny Dillingham put up against the Texas defense? I think it's going to have to be in the game plan. Will he get to 14 to 17? Most likely, no matter what he calls on the day. Can he get to 30? That would have to be a game plan that caught Texas by surprise. And I don't see any way Texas doesn't score at least 27, 28 in this game. So the only way I feel like Arizona State's going to win is if they get to 30.
Yeah.
So where did they get to 30? I think it has to be offensive game plan.
Turnovers from Texas.
And turnovers are definitely a piece of that. But how do they get to 30? It's got to be a game plan. It can't just be Scatterboo left, Scatterboo right, quarterback run.
They got to protect Leavitt because he's been beat up a little bit. He can't. And maybe they just go for broke and it doesn't matter. But I do think it matters. And they got to be careful with Leavitt running a little bit in this game, in my opinion, because he hasn't been hit by this big and fast this year. And he's been banged up a little bit, but he should be the healthiest he's been. So Tony Medlock has a good one. How important is it? We're going to add a fourth to this. Justice Terry, Michael Terry, Lance Jackson are getting to sit in for practice for the playoff. Colt Brevard is now also taking part. The Purdue transfer is also taking part in a couple of practices late. Here ahead of it. This is huge.
Three of those. It's important to note the reason they're doing that is 3 of those guys are defensive linemen, Jerry.
Yeah, no doubt.
And how many defensive linemen transferred out of Texas this offseason?
Yep.
And no longer available for practice squad.
The key, that, and the big thing for me is, let's assume Texas wins this game they're supposed to win. Then you have 8 more days 9 more days before a college football semifinal game. At that point, 4 more practices probably. Justice Terry, Lance Jackson, Michael Terry have almost got a spring practice in. They essentially get 2 spring practices because of this new playoff format. I mean, if Texas happens to go play for the national championship, those guys get more than 2 spring practices. Cole Brevard would then get 2 spring practices. I mean, that is a big deal. And Myron Charles was going to do the same thing. Port Charlotte did not get his final transcripts to Texas in the NCAA in time, so he doesn't come in until January 13th. That's unfortunate. Sometimes that's the way it works because these high schools are planning on these kids not having to have everything finalized until these guys enroll in mid-January. So that was unfortunate. Myron Charles was planning to do the same thing based on what he told me. But that's a huge deal for Justice Terry, Lance Jackson. Michael Terry's working out at wide receiver, by the way. But that's a big deal if you end up getting essentially 2 spring practices. Very rare before you've ever played a game as a freshman.
We got more super chats to get to. And on the other hand, thank you for your super chat. It says, buy or sell. Arch will do a Tebow-style jump pass at some point in the playoff.
And this is a good time to put this out there. In the open media session, Arch, of course, came out and said, I'm not going anywhere. I mean, this guy's going to be answering this when he's 7 years in the NFL. Hey, are you going to transfer from Texas to Ole Miss? John, we didn't hear your answer 12 years ago. It's just so stupid. But people didn't follow the Manning family. That's like, oh, he's only going to play 1 year and go to, and like, do people follow this family at all? Like, does anybody do research anymore? Is Arch going to do a jump pass? I don't know if it's a jump pass, but I will continue to say those runs have been left. At some point, he is going to run that boot waggle to the right with those 3 layers of options that he came in, that Sark always brings him into the game. And that's a lot of times in the red zone, that's his first read. First play he calls for him. I think that one's coming.
My take is no on the jump pass. He doesn't need to do the jump pass. And it's a little bit of a risky play, in my opinion. That's how balls get intercepted, especially with new quarterbacks.
Yeah,
I would not do that. I'd let him either drop back, run, some sort of waggle like Jerry's talking about. But jump passes are inherently risky, in my opinion. No need to be risky down there. Shouldn't be in this game, at least.
And then we got another super chat regarding Arizona State. This one from Splendid Daddy, formerly Sugar Daddy. And he says, is it possible we're underestimating the difference in the trenches? Arizona State is used to the Big 12. Texas is one of the best in the SEC. It could get ugly.
That's more my thinking is in this game. I think Arizona State's got good players. I think they play hard. I think they have a great culture. They've done a great job at that program. I mean, sometimes you just go up against bigger and better guys. And, Pac-12 is not exactly a monster physical league either. So this is going to be a little different for them. And they'll be motivated. And look, I remember when Clemson drove the field and scored, and everybody's like, uh-oh, I could see it. I could see something similar. But it's, again, in games like this, in a matchup like this, it's what happens after the first 10 minutes of this game through the final whistle. That's where the talent disparity, the size disparity really comes into play in those trenches. And that's kind of the question. Is it going to look like Notre Dame did against an Alabama in a college football playoff a few years ago? That's what Arizona State can't have happen to them.
And then we're going to switch gears here from Arizona State and knock out some of these other supers, guys. This one from Texas Traveler. Thank you for your super chat. He says, Texags is at DEFCON 5 this morning. I would imagine so after that bowl game. I don't know what you want to call it.
I said this early on. I don't see the path right now for A&M. Like, I don't. I mean, I know everybody's saying, oh, well, Elko's the defensive coach. The defense will be fine. The defense has not been fine.
No, that was the thing that I was like.
I'm just telling you, they're
What-
losing their 3 best defensive players, at least. They're not getting a better guy in the portal than Nick Scourton. I got news for you. They don't have a guy better than Nick Scourton sitting on the bench right now. They don't have a guy better than Shamar Stewart or Shamar Turner on the bench right now. Maybe David Hicks is that category. But I'm just telling you now, I don't see a path. I don't. 25 of the last 27 years, they have finished the regular season 8-4 or worse. That's, look, and A&M, a lot of people wanted this to be a different year for them, and it looked like it could be. I don't know that Marcel Reed's the long-term answer for them at quarterback. I mean, he's a good quarterback. Is he the quarterback that can take you to a national? I don't think he throws it well enough, Jerry, and I don't think he'll ever throw it well enough.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with A&M for me is why I've given them a chance in recent years is because from an NIL perspective,
yes,
they're a top 5. So now it's all about how do you put your roster and your team together, and that's what Elko is going to have to prove out here in the next 3 years, because they should, and I'll continue to say this. If not, they've underachieved in my opinion, because this thing's going to a 16-team playoff. But no, I'm talking in the future, Bobby, with NIL and the way things are structured. They should be, both A&M and Texas should be in the playoffs 4 out of every 5 years.
A&M lost.
If you're doing
A&M did diddly squat with the greatest recruiting class of all time. I mean, absolutely bubkus.
But I'm talking 16-team playoff.
Well, here's my point, though, okay? Money, if anybody can tell y'all this, okay, it should be Texas. A Texas fan should be able to understand. Money does not necessarily equate to success.
That's what I mean, pick the right
Look
player.
at the 2010s. Texas had all the money in the world. Where was the success?
Pick the wrong players.
Pick the wrong players, pick the wrong coaches.
Yep.
I'm just telling you, I mean, money, there's some latency in the program. Look, Jimbo Fisher had some. Where's the energy from Mike Elko? Oh, well, we've got it turned around now. We've got a better culture. Okay. I believe you.
If they don't get it done, they failed because they should in this setup. Bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like Texas should have in the 2010s, though.
Yeah.
Texas should have never gone.
Look, if I'm here's the thing too. I don't know if the future, obviously the future schedules aren't out. A&M, they have to get it done in the next year in terms of building that roster, because in 2 years after next year, when the schedule changes, I think they're going to be looking at an Oklahoma level schedule. I mean, they're going to look up and say, "Whoa, we got Georgia, Tennessee, Bama. I mean, Florida. They got Florida this year. That will be off. But I mean, they're looking at a potentially much more difficult schedule when this thing changes in 2026. So they better get it right now.
Lamar, Nicholls State, Wofford on the Ag. I mean, what the hell?
That's easy.
That's ridiculous. I mean, that's ridiculous. I hope they get 50,000 for Wofford or Lamar. I mean, Lamar. Did you even know they had a?
Bobby, don't disrespect the Collie versus the Terriers.
I'm just
There's
telling
going to be 100,000 dogs in that stadium.
Oh, goodness.
In fact,
Oh, gosh.
I mean, give me a break.
Oh, by the way, Stephen Houston, I agree with this. He said, I can see Florida beating them by 25 with Lagway next year. And what Florida's done, I mean, I could see it. Florida's going to be in a better spot than A&M next year.
Jeff Carey with the super chat. He says, On Text Football is sponsored by an orthopedic surgeon and ED Drink. What's next for the old men chat?
We're going to go on Viking cruises next. That'll be
Live stream.
the river, because we'll go on the river cruises because we can't handle the waves.
That's not a bad idea for the
by
month.
the way. So fair warning, everyone.
That's not a bad idea for the month between the end of the season and spring football. That's something to look at.
We got portal. Depending on how
on the Viking River cruise every day. We could go have the On Texas Football Combine in like 3 different European countries. Because when I was ESPN Under Armour, we did a camp in Cologne, Germany, and it was, dude, those kids love ball over there. There's not many fast guys because those guys weren't there, but they had some big, strong kids, man. More international guys coming to college football, by the way, right now.
And our next one comes from KD35. I am the best. He says, did Tacario Davis ever actually enter the portal?
I believe he has actually entered the portal. The issue now is whether or not he goes and stays in the portal or actually announces for the NFL.
Yeah.
That's his issue. So we'll see what he ends up doing. My take on him is there's no doubt they're going to kick the tires on Tacario Davis. They did a year ago, guys. I also think that they're going to wait. And Jerry, how do we explain this to folks with what Texas is doing in the portal right now? Texas is being aggressive behind the scenes and talking to folks behind the scenes, but the coaches are 100% focused on the game. Okay?
Yeah.
And the coaches know that these portal potential additions, I should say, cannot visit now until January 1st. So I would think that we will hear information on the portal that's more hard and fast, unless some news leaks out beforehand. It's always possible. But beginning on January 2nd, where, okay, there's going to be start lining up visits, and there's 10 days until the next game, or 9 days until the next game. So late next week, or late this week, in my opinion, Thursday, Friday, I can see Texas hosting visitors this coming weekend. Is I guess what I'm saying. You're not necessarily going to hear about them beforehand because Texas is focused and trying to be focused on the game at hand. And I talked about this last night. Look, I'm as big a recruiting fan and roster construction fan as there is. I've loved it my entire life, and I think it's the lifeblood of any program. Okay, but winning a national championship is what it's all about, like on the field of play. The other things about a national recruiting championship, A&M won one of those. I don't care about those. I mean, they're nice. You can have, beat your chest a little bit, but the ones that matter are the ones where Vince Young runs into the end zone, right? Those are the ones that you remember for 25 years and forever. That's what Texas is trying to accomplish. And so that's why you don't hear, in my opinion, as much coming out of Texas right now as it relates to portal.
I would say this about the portal too. And then AJ, we're gonna answer your question on Jonah Williams because I think it's a good one. Think about it in terms of the 2022 recruiting class in the portal with Sark. There's a lot of guys you can take. It doesn't mean they're the guys they necessarily want to take. In the 22 class, they held out for the guys that they thought were the best players that they could get and the guys they needed the most. And it happened to be on the offensive line. I think you're seeing the same thing on the defensive line. Look, Jermaine Lole was a late guy last year. Is he better than 98% of the D linemen that were in the portal last year? Absolutely. So I think Sark, they take this measured approach. They could have 7 guys right now, and they could overpay for 5 guys in their mind and not like it and not trust what they just did. They're going for the best players they can get, however long it takes them to get those guys, the best fits and the best players. That's what I would say. AJ has a good Jonah Williams. Is Joan only playing defense when he gets here? Also, do we know if he's going to be a starting pitcher or relief in baseball? I think you answered that second part, Blake, but he is only playing safety, yes. He'll be involved in the return game, I would assume on the kickoff return game on some level. But if you're asking, you may have seen him play. I think Jonah Williams is a stud at wide receiver, but he is going to play safety at Texas. He'll be sitting in on the team meetings this spring and for football while competing in baseball.
Yeah. And no, he won't be a starting pitcher. EJ wants to know, and EJ, thank you for your super chat. Jerry, what's going on with Ty Haywood still not signed?
Not a guy that Texas really ever made a push for. Could something change in January? Maybe, but just not a guy that there's ever been a push for from Texas. And Ty Haywood, obviously on his end, was never truly interested in Texas anyways. But Texas had guys higher on the board when all this recruiting began with Ty Haywood. You got to remember, Texas is pretty tight with the Denton Ryan staff. That doesn't mean Ty Haywood won't be a really good player. He's a very talented kid. But that was never a push by Texas.
Never a push by Texas. It sounds like Michigan and Alabama are going toe-to-toe based on what I've heard behind the scenes.
Double Eagles giving it a go, too.
Oh, are they really? Interesting.
All right. Bradford.
We didn't talk about that game.
Yeah.
Texas Tech, Arkansas. Chat.
What do you got, Blake?
Bradford says, I saw a reporter asking Arch about the portal. Journalism in general has become a lazy field. I want to thank y'all for actually doing good work. Hook 'em.
I want to lay something out on our Arch. And even all the talk last year when people are like, hey, is Arch going to jump in the portal? Where was he going to go? Alabama had Milroe. Ole Miss had Dart. Georgia had Carson Beck. Where was he going to go? Like, where is he going to go? Arizona?
He didn't want to go any of the. I mean, look, he wants to be.
This is my point. He was never going anywhere. It was never a thought. But all these people are like, hey, Arch is going to transfer to where? The same situation he's in and not develop under a guy that they think is the modern day Cutcliffe for them? It's like people don't do any research, man. That's the thing that drives me nuts. If you did research and it's like, hey, Arch Manning's going to come out after he starts, you're going to the NFL draft. Really? Has a Manning ever done that? Peyton Manning was the number one pick after his junior year. What did he do? Bobby stayed for his senior year. Like Archie Manning he was at a bar somewhere. There was a video, and Archie's like, well, I hope he stays 3 years, starts 3 years. Is that going to happen? I don't know, but I know he's not leaving after one. It's going to be 2 or 3. And people just don't do research. It's like they don't research the Manning family.
I would.
He's he going to transfer? Where's he going to transfer? You want Arch to transfer to Ohio State? You do realize the whole family's played in the SEC, right? I mean, it's like people just don't do any research anymore. It's amazing.
I want to say this: journalism is not a true journalism. Journalism is not a lazy field. It's people that have to get out there and go do it each and every day. What has happened is people that are involved in clickbait and that sort of thing get locked in with journalism, and that's not journalism. That's marketing, and that's lazy. Now, not all marketing is lazy, just to be clear. Okay, I'm not saying that but that sort of stuff is not journalism. It's more marketing, and that's clickbait. It's not like, look, I know. I'll give you an example. Bunch of Austin reporters right now. Bob Ballou is a friend. He's driving to Atlanta right now. Local Austin TV guy. Okay, those guys are not lazy. The people that are lazy, in my opinion, are the ones just basically taking headlines and writing AI articles, and something comes up and that's what's happening. And that's one thing that I hope to never do for here at On Texas Football. I can't control the universe, but young people, you hire young people like CJ Vogel that want to get to the truth. You hire people like Jerry Hamilton that's done it for 25 years and is piece of this, Rod Babers. I mean, Bob, you do that, Blake Monroe. You hire people that care and want to uncover the truth or talk about the truth, as opposed to want to just write a headline that makes somebody click on something. It's not marketing. Marketing is what clickbait is, not journalism.
Okay, Henry James BC, is Blake taking down his Christmas trees yet? Yes, they are all Christmas decorations in my house.
Have the Christmas trees taken Blake down yet?
Yeah. Although she already is thinking of ideas for new ones. Triplet Joseph 44, is Sicario Davis getting passed on? We just talked about that. Sorry, I would have put that up when we were discussing that. My bad. I didn't see that one in time. And then Bradford here says Sam Ehlinger really kept Texas afloat. He's a legend.
He is a legend, but I don't know that he, here's my take about Sam, is I feel bad for him in that he went through what happened with the Eyes of Texas. And I still say Texas was fairly talented, one deep. They just didn't have a coach, either Charlie Strong or Tom Herman, that knew how to really build out a roster to compete. I mean, Charlie Strong couldn't get it done for a number of reasons. Tom Herman actually recruited some elite players, but he couldn't. He was such a to players that he couldn't build depth and couldn't get enough. And so Texas would lose games they weren't supposed to lose. They couldn't be anything else. So that's my concern, I guess, is I feel bad for Sam. He is a legend, but I don't know that he kept Texas afloat. I don't necessarily agree with that. He was who he was. He's a Texas legend. That wasn't Texas afloat. 7-6 is not, and 8-5 is not. That's Aggie. Keeping Aggies afloat. That's not what Sam did. Great player, great Longhorn. I don't like the term afloat, I guess.
Okay, Bobby, before we get to our last few questions here, will you let everyone know about John Donovan one last time, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to John Donovan, President, Longhorn Wealth Management Group. As a proud UT alum, John served 15 years, as the Dallas, Texas Exes board member and is now helping lead the build-out of the Collin County Exes chapter. John wants to encourage all OTF fans in the North Texas area to come join the fun at the Collin County Texas Exes game watch party at the Brass Tap in Plano on New Year's Day. John will look forward to seeing you there for what he is predicting will be a 41-16 victory. John's laying down the law. In that celebratory spirit, John is offering all OTF fans the gift of a free 90-minute consultation to evaluate how a certified financial planner can help you identify the best financial strategies and solutions to jumpstart your 2025 by focusing on maximizing your wealth, minimizing your taxes, and securing your legacy. Call John and the Longhorn Wealth team, 972-707-4900, or go online to www.longhornwealth.net to schedule your free private consultation today. John wishes all OTF fans a happy new year. Let's beat Arizona State and hook 'em. Thanks, John. We appreciate you, bud.
And we also appreciate hell like, weather hell. Thank you, OTF. I feel Texas is peaking at the right time with confidence, rhythm, and focus. Georgia, I believe, has been the best prep for the playoff run, 54-12. Texas.
Jerry would be happy with that. Jerry, that's more like Jerry's score.
Yeah, whew, man. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think Arizona State's up against it if they can't get pressure on the quarterback. Josie, Bobby, we have videos of player and coach interviews. Yes, we will shortly.
CJ has already sent those in to us, to the back end to Matt Hutchison, our producer, and we'll have those up shortly for everyone.
And then our last one today, fellas. I know he had a little trouble putting in the super chat. I got to find it here. My apologies. Gosh, where did it go? Basically, it just jumped on me. Johnny Epp says, if Golden returns, do we still go to the portal at wide receiver?
Jerry, you're shaking your head. I still think they need a speed guy with Bond leaving, Jerry.
They may.
If there is one that they want.
Yeah.
That's
the one guy they have missed on.
What about the young man from Tennessee?
Yeah, somebody also asked about Mike Matthews from Tennessee. The freshman that hit the portal. That guy's a really talented player. But I don't, he said 7 for 90 and 2 touchdowns last year. I think he's really talented. But I think Texas is going to go for production guys that have speed. But if Matthew Golden happened to return, I think it's 50-50 at that point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I can see them not doing it.
Somebody asked this question for all of us. ASU insider Jerry Hamilton, does Scatterboo get over 100 yards Wednesday? I think all-purpose yards, yes. Rushing yards, I'm going to say no.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good way to put it. If he does get over 100 rushing yards, I think that's the recipe for ASU win.
Or at least keeping it close into the fourth quarter. Because that means they probably have 25 first downs in a game. They've possessed the ball enough. I don't think he will personally get 100 yards rushing against Texas. Now, they've gone to more of a downhill run game, as Rod Babers is talking about, instead of a more of the zone outside or wide zone run scheme that they were doing a little early. But their losses this year, 18 for 60 at Texas Tech, 17 for 75 at Cincinnati. Sam Leavitt didn't play against Cincinnati. He had 24 for 62 against Texas State. None of those teams are Texas defensively. I'm going to say he doesn't get 100 rushing yards. And I think the number for Texas for a comfortable win is he has less than 70 rushing yards. If he has less than 70 rushing yards, that means Arizona State, the thing they needed to happen, is blown up.
Okay, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. Want to thank them, along with Duck Camp, both for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for tuning in. The great questions, the super chats. Be sure to head on over to ontexasfootball.com. And what, Bobby? Only 2 days
I've
left.
got something special. We got something a little special for you guys this afternoon. For the winning drive, obviously Coach Shipley, Rod Babers, and CJ on the winning drive. We've got a special guest for you guys. A little nepotism here. We're going to allow Jordan Shipley to come on and talk a little football with Coach Shipley and his family. So in the weekend for Christmas. So Jordan will be on the winning drive with Coach Shipley, as well as Rod Babers and CJ Vogel a little bit later. I also want to say this. Lisa Vogel has been on the chat this morning. Lisa, my wife and I are going out there. Hopefully we can see you and your husband, CJ's dad, out there later tonight or tomorrow. Check us out on Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon at Botica, Botica, from 3 to 6. There's a happy hour with the Atlanta, Texas X's. Come one, come all. You do not have to be at X to be out there, but please feel welcome to come if you'd like to. Again, it's in the Buckhead area from 3 to 6. We'll stay till 7, 8 o'clock that night.
And before you get out of here, please hit that like and subscribe button. We would appreciate the support. And at ontexasfootball.com, you can become a member, but you only got 2 days left to take advantage of using promo code OTFOG. You can get a full year for $39.95, and that will end on the 1st. So take advantage very quickly there. Buy yourself a late Christmas present. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Off to Atlanta.